All righty. We're waiting for technology to catch up. Okay. Looks like we are just waiting on Facebook to connect, but we are live. Just waiting on Facebook to connect. I tell you what, while we're waiting on Facebook to catch up with us, I want to go ahead and introduce you. And hopefully, once this is corrected, it's so important that
people. I'm not even saying that we are on Facebook already.
Yeah. So do you do see us there?
Yeah, it says we've been in for like 50 seconds.
Yeah. It's still buffering on my end. So we are in a whole different world right now. So welcome everyone to PowerTalk with Ms. Mogul. I am super excited to have in the studio again for our second installment of Nonprofits in Real Estate, the one and the only, and I can say now, my dear friend, Miss Sherita Oglesby. Now, again, a quick bio of who this dynamic leader is. She is an economic empowerment strategist. She is a global speaker, a global strategist. Many of her clients involve global leaders, chambers of commerce, mega corporations, celebrities, you name it. Many have come and picked up her wisdom when it comes to nonprofits and profitability. Some of her highlights: she has helped her clients earn over $30 million in capital just at her hands alone. That is dynamic. She has been in the industry for almost 3 decades now. Doesn't look a day over any of it. And I am so excited to have her in the studio again today. Now, Sherita, we ended the first segment on a huge high. The feedback from that segment has been phenomenal. People are really excited about the possibilities. Yes, ma'am. They really connected with the content that you shared, but people are really excited about having a heart in their enterprise and learning now how to pivot in the current economic climate. I said in the last segment, regardless of who takes the White House, we're in for a bumpy ride in 2021. Many of us in the real estate industry, because of the rent moratoriums, we're going to see many of our people who are leasing our properties not be able to lease anymore. So we have to learn and get a decisive plan on how we will continue to be profitable in our business while meeting some of the needs of our clientele, our tenants. Then folks are going to be losing their homes because many are losing their jobs. And we know now, based upon what the economists are saying, 11 million jobs will not be replaced in the economy. They're not coming back in their past form. So those of us who are entrepreneurial and who have a heart see a dynamic opportunity in the area of real estate and nonprofits to serve at a higher level. And so I'm so glad that you're here today to continue that conversation. And I wanted to jump right in because we have some time, but I'm concerned about the inclement weather here. And I know you're in a pretty rural area, and I want us to get as much content as we can in. And if we have to come back, you all, and relaunch this, Ms. Oglesby has already committed to doing that. And that's why I love her so much. But if we don't get it all in this time, we're going to get it in. It's that important. It's that important. So,
yes, ma'am.
Today's show is all about jobs creation, right? Because I'm focused now, unlike Washington in many ways, I'm focused on replacing those 11 million jobs that the economists said are not coming back. I talked to you in our downtime about now thinking about opportunity zones. Now, to the current administration's credit, they've done quite a bit with building up opportunity zones and opportunities for minority-owned business, women-owned business, and what they call small business. None of our business is small, but that's what they label it. So there's a lot of opportunity there when it comes to small business and women-owned business, minority-owned business. First question I wanted to ask you is, what is the nonprofit business structure that's needed right now? So let's talk specifically in the area of opportunity zones, empowerment zones, right? Working now to rebuild some of those urban structures that may be losing jobs. We're seeing a lot of vacancies now in the commercial spaces. What is the structure that we need, first of all, to get our hands on these opportunities? We know that the opportunity to own Family Dollars, that's big. To launch schools in our urban areas, we can do that now. To launch hospitals and a different way of looking at healthcare in our urban centers. But let's start at the very beginning. What's the structure that's needed to begin now employing the process of occupying that opportunity?
Well, for most of you, you want to become a 501c3. There are 29 different kinds of nonprofits. But if you're wanting to go after grants and benefit from those, you want to be a 501c3. Whether you call yourself a foundation, a charity, because people always think that foundation classifies you as just a word. But you can call yourself even a CDC, a community development corporation. But whatever you call yourself, you want to become a 501c3 tax exempt organization. Now, you mentioned opportunity zones. Prior to opportunity zones, there were revitalization zone, and then there was empowerment zones. And now, as empowerment zones kind of went through, ended around in 2016, and then with the new administration came the empowerment zones, and that was also through a bill that was enacted to create the opportunity zones that now exist across 50 states. But either way, all of them mean giving corporate tax breaks for corporations and builders to go into low-income communities and create housing, jobs, and enhance the economics of that particular area.
So I want to jump in and make sure that we have a grasp on the terminology. So what I'm hearing you say is the administration kind of redefines the terminology, but the function is still the same. So you may be in Kansas and they're saying revitalization zones still, and you may be in Texas and we're hearing opportunity zones, but essentially it's the same thing. It's federal dollars that are set aside for these areas.
Yes, the end result is the same. Now, revitalization is more of municipalities, community leaders, small business owners coming together to create strategies for economic development. Empowerment zones and opportunity zones is more so the funding that is given to corporations, giving tax breaks, stimulus for them to come in and infuse the economy of low-income areas. But let me also say this, my dear. The nonprofit arena, it was entirely established to benefit low-income and the deprived. So whether it's housing through empowerment zones, whether it's grants for schools, whether it's grants for childcare, the nonprofit arena is established to provide access and to empower. So through all of these different names, that's still why the nonprofit arena was written into law over 123 years ago.
So really, nonprofits are really about leverage and everyone having quote unquote access to the American dream, whatever that is. But it's a conduit to access. Right? Access to economics, to education, to healthcare, all those things that we care about. Nonprofits are there as a conduit of that. I want to go back though, because there's a lot of opportunity here. And I think now is the time for entrepreneurs to start thinking outside of their little defined boxes. So there's money out there before we get into that, is there a benefit to having a foundation versus a CDC? Is there some kind of benefit with taxes? I see the puppy in the back there. Is there some kind of tax benefit to a foundation versus a CDC? Or are they
the same?
Okay.
They're the same. Foundation is just a word. Just like, you're calling me Sherita or you call me Jeanette. They both are my names. So foundation, but based on how you fill out your paperwork with the IRS dictates what kind you are, whether you're a private foundation or a public charitable. Becoming a CDC, which is Community Development Corporation, is just another name that you can take on. You can even be a Community Development Corporation Foundation or the Foundation for Community Development. You know, all of them are just words. It is the way that you complete the Form 1023 on what dictates what kind you are. And that's why I said initially, all of you that are listening, if you're wanting to go after grants and want to be able to develop not only housing, but other kinds of programming, you want to be a 501c3 public charitable foundation.
Good. Okay. That's good information. So is there a specific dollar amount? I know you said it's how we fill out the paperwork, but I've always heard of foundations being those families who had multi-million-dollar grants or money that's kind of in their family hub, and they formed a foundation for that. So is there a dollar amount? Or can you just complete the application, and then once the money comes, is there any difference in that?
Well, see, those that give the money are private foundations. Those of you that want to receive the money are public charitable foundations.
Okay.
So that's why I said foundation is just the word. It's not the classification.
Gotcha.
And no, there's no limit to what you can receive in a grant.
That's good.
One of the largest single grant that I helped secure was over 14 million. And it's not like he was an old nonprofit. They went off of his history. He had a long history of being a major developer in the Los Angeles metropolitan area. Once we developed his nonprofit and he went after the funding to do a major project in Watts, California, that was also going to create jobs and bring in businesses, they looked at his track record on what he had been doing in his for-profit. And that's what warranted him getting the funding in his nonprofit. But it was over 14 million.
Okay, so that certainly piqued my interest. So I guess my question now is, as a kind of a segue into another question, how much does experience have to deal with funding? And we're jumping ahead a little bit, but you brought up something pretty interesting there, that it was his experience that basically validated him getting such a substantial grant. How much of our experience plays a part in funding? So case in point, I'm interested in healthcare, but I don't have a medical background. I want to look at healthcare from a holistic earth or even an Eastern medicine perspective, but I don't have a background in medicine.
That's why you collaborate. Just like, for instance, if you're a YMCA director, everyone knows about YMCAs. Most YMCA directors are not basketball coaches, but they may get major funding for basketball because they bring on the qualified coach and also show his experience and past experience, which warrants getting that grant. Or childcare. When I was a director at the Weingart YMCA and there in Los Angeles, we were one of the largest childcare organizations in LA County. We had probably 7 or 8 childcare facilities in collaboration with local churches and schools. But our executive director at the time didn't have his child care credentials. He brought on the qualified individual to run the child care. So it's just like a for-profit. Even Apple dude, the creator of Apple, Steve Jobs. He brought on the individuals that he needed to make Apple the mega company that it is now. So it's the same thing. A nonprofit is still a business. It is a corporation. And if you think of it in those terms, even if you were going after a small business loan, if you're a new business, what do you rely on initially? Your resume and what you've already been doing to show them that maybe you have management experience, or you're an accountant and you're good at managing money. That's why all grant funders, I don't care whether you're asking for 5,000 or 50 million, they ask, who are you? What is your experience, past and present? Because they're looking at. So
I want, for those people who are going to see this during the replay and now, I want to kind of keep it in bullet points. So the first thing we have to do is have the right structure, become a 501c3, make sure we complete that application correctly, and that will determine how we're placed. But then I'm hearing you say experience comes into play. So you need to document what you're doing, keep good records, right? It goes back to that. Keep copious notes.
Can I touch on that real quick?
Go ahead,
Even with
please.
the IRS application, when you're filling that out, they're asking you for your past and present experience. A lot of the questions that you answer on that 501c3 application are almost the exact questions that most grant funders ask.
And I know that to be true because I've completed the application just maybe a week ago. I started my own application process. It's pretty detailed. So you have to be on top of your numbers, know what you're doing, have that experience documented. And you're absolutely correct. The same paperwork that's some questions, I should say, that the IRS is asking, the same is being asked of the other entity. So stay on top
and
of that.
What else?
What's that?
You know what else? A lot of people have heard that getting their tax exemption takes a year, 2 years. They don't complete the story when they tell you that. It took them that long because the IRS kept rejecting their paperwork. And that's why it took that long. Okay. You've got to make sure that all your I's are dotted, T's are crossed. And some of the questions can seem really tricky. You know, we've gotten nonprofits approved in 12 business days, 18 business days, 45, but you've got to make sure that you answer those questions correctly.
That is so true. Wow. And so I have heard those horror stories about it taking a year to get the certification from the IRS, the designation, I guess is what it's called, from the IRS. But that's, again, the importance of having someone like you on the team who can walk through the minutia. I mean, I call it minutia because I hated to deal with it, but all the detail. Those applications are extremely detailed, and you have to know when those questions are because I noticed too, I'm kind of going off on a rabbit trail and we'll come back, but the questions were rephrased. Like, I was like, so you asked this at the top and they rephrased the question just to make sure it truly is a nonprofit and that there's no conflict of interest there and that you're not dealing in nepotism and some of those other things that can get you into trouble. You're not really gambling with the money. You know, those questions come up. So you have to, one, have an experienced professional on hand like you who can walk you through that process. And you have to pay close attention to this. It should not take a year to get this done. And let's be honest, we don't have a year to get this done. Opportunity is going to be coming down the pipe. You got to be on top of your game.
Absolutely.
Cool. So that's a good way to go into the next question, Sherita. How are nonprofits in real estate used to address low-income housing crises? Now, I mentioned this a little bit at the beginning of the hour. We know that, again, regardless of who comes into the next administration, we're going to ride out some rough times in the housing market. Some areas of the country are still pretty solid, but for the most part, what most economists are saying that I'm speaking to is that the beginning of the year, we're going to see kind of a ripple effect where those moratoriums now are expiring. And if people have not been able to replace their income to now start assuming rent again, landlords are going to be faced with how do they become profitable again? And that it sounds tough, but that's the business we're in. So how do they become profitable? But how do we meet the needs of low-income housing? So tell us, go a little bit deeper into how nonprofits in real estate address the low-income housing crisis, and how do we remain profitable while we're doing that?
Okay, when someone has Section 8, a Section 8 apartment building, they own that building, is it still profitable for them?
It absolutely is.
It's the same thing. The funding that you receive through Section 8 is really grants that are awarded through the government to cover to cover the rent or help out where low income individuals cannot pay the owner the full amount of rent. So Section 8 comes in and takes care of the rest. The same thing can happen whether you're doing Section 8 or you developed your own CDC and going after grant funding. It's the same concept. It's just the money is coming to you from a different revenue stream.
So, okay. Quick question. So when we're talking Section 8, we're talking about federal money. We're talking about HUD, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so the reason I'm bringing it up is
there's so much other money besides government funding.
That's what I wanted to get into, but I wanted to make the distinction because we hear the term Section 8 thrown out a lot. And I want to make sure people know that that's federal money. That's housing, urban development. That's HUD money. We love HUD
That's HUD
money.
money.
But let's also tie it into maybe the states have money that's set aside for low income housing. And then those
And
opportunity zones that again have money set aside specifically for this. Talk to us a little bit about all of that.
well, there's so much more besides state and federal funding. See,
Okay.
that's a drop in the bucket. There's corporate funding, there's private investors, there's so much other funding.
So take us from the top. How do we access the federal money, the state money, the local money, the private money? Take us through the process quickly. How do we access that?
You actually can just do a search online and find funding. If you go to Google, that's where I find my best searches. Type in grants, housing, nonprofit, or grants, low income housing. And if whoever's listening to this, just go and type that in, it'll bring up funders that fund for low income housing. But you're also doing so much more. There's funding for dealing with broken families. There's funding for aiding single mothers. There's family for ensuring that low income children have a safe environment. See, there's so much other funding that you should also be looking for. Okay.
That's good. So put a pin right there, because every time you say something, Sherita, it's like a pebble going into an ocean. Okay. Or I should say a boulder going into the ocean. It's not, you say something and then it opens up this big conversation. So for those of you who are out there, right, who have a heart, so many of the people I talk to have this passion for families and for low income families. Lots of people I talk to. So there is the opportunity now to provide home buyers education. That's something I'm really passionate about. Moving people who are low income from housing, Section 8, into owning their own home and really starting to develop a wealth paradigm. There's money for that. There's nutritional programs. Most of the folks who live in these urban areas are also in food deserts. So if you can bring now some education to healthy eating and to health, and then show them how to maybe do some gardens on the back of their porch, that's money that we can go after. And if there's a single mom or a single dad who may want parenting skills or how to set up a home-based business, there's money for that. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Absolutely. And to address the issues that are happening now and occurring, that's going to be long-term following COVID-19. You've got people that are going through mental issues. You've got realtors out here that are in real estate, but they also have a passion for mental illness. Maybe one of them grew up with a parent that was bipolar, and they understand what a household is like. That realtor can also, let's say that realtor has an apartment building going to offer for low-income individuals, but also your bottom floor is a community room and you're going to bring classes. So there's funding for you to address the mental illness that's going on right now, but also what's going to be long-term. So you can collaborate with a counselor, bring that counselor also as a program and a facilitator to your facility, or do it virtually right now before you even have your facility to address mental illness. There's funding for domestic violence. There's funding for alcoholism and substance abuse. There have been an increase in overdoses right now.
Substance abuse is way up.
The ones that are being impacted most right now through COVID-19 are women, and especially mothers, because their jobs are being impacted. They're at home like you, getting your kids starting in school, homeschooling, trying to figure out which way their house can now function for work, school, activities, And so for everything I'm naming, everything, Charity, there's funding. That's why I said initially at the beginning of this call, the nonprofit arena is there to address issues and provide access. So everything that I'm saying right now, there's a grant for that. That's why my book coming out is called There's a Grant for That. You can't tell me.
We have to get our hands on the book. Sherita, oh my God, my hand is just swirling right now. So it really is an opportunity for business owners who are creative in their thinking and who want to leverage or expand their footprint in not only community development, but economic development. The two can marry each other beautifully with community development and economic development. There are so many opportunities right now for the two to marry each other and marry well. With real estate is it's so vast. So much of what I do with Mommy's Creating Economies is creating the lifestyle around the real estate. And that's really what I just heard you say. It's not just about getting the home, but it's the life in the home that should be addressed as well. It's the community around the home that has to be addressed as well. And so it really does open up the opportunity, because we opened the segment with how do we remain profitable in what looks like it can be a chaotic environment. Let me preface by saying so many millionaires have been made in times like these, in what society is calling chaotic times. Millionaires have been birthed, but we don't always hear the benevolence or the community aspect or the paying back or the community part. I keep going back to that word community because it's so important. We don't always hear about how they gave back after receiving all of that goodness from that experience, if you want to call it that. But this is an opportunity now to have paradigm and purpose come together, right? Profitability and purpose marry each other well with this. Yes.
See, the thing is, even with, let's go to corporate America right now, and let's go to our current administration. See, opportunity zones were initiated by Trump's administration.
That's right.
And what that did, look at this, it gives tax breaks to the large corporate developers and corporations. Okay. But at the same time, it benefited low-income communities. It created those opportunity zones. So whatever your political party, put that aside. We've got to look at, I know that there's some ways that we might look at one thing and saying, oh no, there's tax credits that are given to the big corporations. Like it or not, but let the individuals that benefited from opportunity zones tell you whether they like that opportunity or not.
Good point.
So it depends on who's the receiver. Yeah, you got to look at that, because what would have happened if we didn't have those opportunity zones? You know, see, we got to stop being so partisan and just be about empowering people. And how do we do that? Because every administration has developed something that has created those zones to create better economics in communities. But also what has happened is, who is watching to make sure that if they were given those or tax credits, that what was supposed to happen did happen. And that happens all over the world. Even following Katrina, a lot of contractors got a lot of big money, but you still see a lot of homes sitting. Where's the check and balance to make sure that happens? I ran for office in Los Angeles because I realized that dollars that I knew came down the pipe did not benefit the poorest council district. So, and I'm not a political person. I just got angry and I went and signed up, you know, just like that. And when I got in, I was like, uh-oh, what did I do?
But you bring up something important, though. This is a time for purpose, not partisan politics. Purpose, not partisan politics. And to your point, this opportunity with opportunity zones, revitalization zones, empowerment zones, it's been around for a while. The issue has been, one, accountability, and two, vision for this. It's not just about going in and throwing up something and say, hey, we help the poor little people, and we don't really put our heart into the project. It really didn't turn the needle. I've seen a lot of that too, where they would go in and something would happen, but you could tell there was no heart and no vision. It was a Band-Aid on the situation, but it did not address systemic issues. You can tell there was profitability over purpose there. But I'm going to challenge each and every person. I'm going to say and I will let you jump in there for just a second, but I want to challenge each and every person who hears this to hear what Sherita and I just said. This is about purpose. It's not only about profitability is important. It's right up there with air. But come on, air is up there. Purpose is important. And I would hope that no one who is listening to this would take away from it as, wow, here's another opportunity to rape and pillage economically. And I said that the way I meant to say that. We need to have people who see these opportunities, and my phone is just blowing up right now because they're saying that they can't see it somewhere. But I promise you all, the replay is coming. But I hope what people are taking away from this, and that's good because they are blowing this phone up right now. People want this information. You get it and you apply purpose and momentum to it and really make an impact in your communities and the surrounding areas. You all have heard, and I'm on my soapbox, but that's okay. It's my box. You all have heard me say that we need to make some changes. We can create this. We don't need government to do this. We just need opportunity and vision to do this. Okay, I'm off the box. Go ahead.
Well, the thing is, I wouldn't say we don't need government because a lot of the funding is coming through the government or whatever funding source. But we need to be educated about it and make sure that the individuals that need it receive it in order for, and that's why I teach this for individuals and corporations and realtors to know how to go after the funding. But there's always money that comes down the pipes to benefit communities, but it doesn't always, and I hate to say it, but it doesn't always fare as well for the Black community. I'm even talking about way back in the 1940s, where after World War II, there was funding allotted for the veterans that were returning home, but it was major discrimination for the Black veterans to receive that same funding. That has been historic, but that's why my focus is to educate everyone about what is available. Because if more people knew what's available, then even if there are discriminatory factors that come in, if you're educated about it, now you've got the ammunition to fight that and to make sure that everyone has an equal opportunity to go after the funding that's available. With every administration, there has been new funding to come about for whether it's housing or jobs or whatever else. After the 1930s depression, think about all the jobs that were lost then. But at the same time, like we talked about before, more millionaires came out of the 1930s depression than ever before in recorded history in the US. And so we've got to stop looking at what is lost from now and what can be gained. There are gaps that need to be filled. And I guarantee you there's funding to help fill these gaps because that's why the nonprofit arena exists.
That's so good. That is so good. It's about changing the perspective and really expanding it, right? And thinking differently about how we're doing business and how we're building communities. Love, love, love that. Quick question for you though, Sherita. Are there specific areas, and we're winding up to a close, are there specific regions in the country that are better suited for this kind of opportunity, or we just have to think creatively and we can do this wherever we are? Which one is it?
Whatever's happening right now, especially with COVID-19, is not only happening across the United States, but the world. There is no one region that is better to do something about what's going on. It's about what is your strategy? What gap are you filling? What needs are you addressing? And how well do you write what it is that you say you're going to do? What are your expected outcomes? There's 5 questions that you are to answer. Who is your target population of what you're doing? What are the issues that you can address with what you say you're going to do? How are you going to address it? What's going to be your steps? And then what are the positive outcomes that can happen from what you say you're going to initiate? And then how much money do you need? I don't care what it is you say that you're doing, from baking bread to making lasagna for the homeless or creating jobs for STEM. You're still answering those 5 questions. And you've got to make sure that you can answer those effectively, or you won't be the one to get the money. But for people to think that there is no money, it is a $1 trillion industry. Like I talked about in part 1, the nonprofit sector is the 3rd largest business sector in the United States. I'm talking about creating jobs. It falls only 3rd behind retail and manufacturing. So it's not that the money doesn't exist. It's not that it's not an industry that not only has a long history, but is going to be around for a very long time. The nonprofit arena helps the U.S. to be the powerhouse that it is. You just have to learn how to operate in this arena, but it is a business. It is a corporation.
Love that. In closing, how do we position ourselves for this opportunity? What do we do? What are the steps we need to take to position ourselves to be profitable in nonprofits, particularly in real estate? But and I say real estate because that was the topic, but it really does go into so many other areas. So maybe we'll just take the real estate part off for a second. But how do we position ourselves for success now with the upcoming economic climate, after the elections, right where we are now? How do we get positioned for success?
Well, I wouldn't worry about the elections either way. The nonprofit arena has survived up no matter what happens as far as our presidential elections or anything else. Stop worrying about something that you can't control. Vote, but then after that, let it go and just start learning this arena. Second, get on my email list. You got to get on my email list to get the information that we send out regularly. And then plus, now, you either need to become a nonprofit. Well, I would say that that's really your only choice. Yes, you can operate initially under what's called a fiscal agent, someone else's nonprofit. But if you're going after housing, you're going to want some major funding. And there's very few organizations that fund through a pass-through organization, what I'm talking, a fiscal sponsor, because they feel like if you're stepping into this arena and they're giving and you're asking for major money, you need to have your own entity established. So a fiscal agent is an organization that's there when you're just trying to dip your toe in the nonprofit arena and going after grants and asking for smaller amounts. But you've got to make sure that you establish yourself as an entity in this arena. Okay. And that's becoming a 501c3. And whether you call yourself a foundation, a CDC, which is Community Development Corporation, grassroots organization, tax, whatever you want to call yourself. But what I do say, I know that we're talking about you guys developing housing, but I've been in this arena since 1988. Do not name your organization that locks you into just one arena, because even though you're real estate, Charity, you do so much more. So you don't want to name your organization, the Charity Housing Foundation, because look at all the other things you're already doing. Name your organization something that will allow you to have all kinds of programs and services and to meet the passions that you love. That's why the YMCA had to go through a major rebranding, because YMCA stands for Young Men's Christian Association. Well, when they were developed, that's who they were focusing on. But now they just go by the Y, because the Y serves so much more than just young men and Christians. And they do from youth aquatics to senior square dancing to youth basketball, summer camp. And you guys as realtors, I guarantee you, once you realize how you can operate in this arena, you're going to, all the passions you have, just like what I'm doing here on our land, all the passions you have, you can put under your nonprofit. And your nonprofit should operate with you and transition with you in whatever way you turn in life. Okay?
Love that. Love that. I want to try to surmise. There was so much meat that's here as usual, but we want to just try to summarize it for all of you again who will be watching this during the replay, to kind of summarize everything we talked about. Today's segment was about jobs creation, and hopefully you've been thinking about now, how can you go bigger? How can you scale? How can you expand what you're already doing? Not just in real estate, but in whatever segment. That's really what I heard. Regardless of where you land in industry, there is the opportunity to work in the nonprofit arena. Make sure
and create all kinds of jobs.
And create jobs. That's
from if you develop your housing facility, that's a maintenance department, that's a groundskeeping, horticulture, or gardening department. You can have your own construction or contracting that is doing
what I was going to talk about. Absolutely,
all of that. Now, also in creating these jobs, I mean, within your organization, you've got your department that could be your culinary arts. Creating jobs. One housing facility, let's say that you got an 8-unit, can also create 10 to 20 more jobs, not to mention all of the individuals that are going to be doing your programs and services, from mental health to financial literacy to parenting classes.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and then too, let's talk about the administrative part. So this is what we want. And again, great tie back in, Sherita. This is what we want you to take away from this segment. One project could potentially hire 100 people if you think about it properly. You can create your own economy. With one project in real estate, we talked about landscaping and what happens on the outside. So that's contractors for painting, for sheetrock, for foundation, horticulture, landscaping, concrete work, masonry work, roofing. The list goes on and on. That's outside. Then if you get inside, we talk about, again, electrical, plumbing, sewage, all of that that can go on the interior. Then let's design it. And then we get into programming. Before we even get to programming, look at everything that has happened just with the structure itself. And when you think about—
there's a need for vocational jobs. There's a dire need for vocational jobs.
Exactly.
Okay? So
people are not finding
all
their
of those you just named. I'm sorry.
That's okay. She's passionate about it too, y'all. But to your point, so many people are not finding their places in traditional colleges anymore. Because again, you go to college to get a job in corporate America. But if your passion is entrepreneurialism, that path just may not be the path for you. And to your point, master plumbers are a dying breed right now. Master electricians are a dying breed, but do we need them? Absolutely. So you have the opportunity to maybe create a vocational program with that project and train other vocational people with every project you do. So that sounds like a vocational school.
And instead of them being focused just on your housing facility, now your program can be on-the-job training ongoing, provide whether it's plumbing, drywalling, or just rehabbing on seniors' homes, low-income moms, so that you're your own Habitat for Humanity. Okay?
Love that.
It's just most people miss it.
And for those of you who are interested in crafting a program like that, my former life was in corporate education. And so we can talk about now maybe even getting CEUs and tying that into state funding so that you can get corporate development money for that. So it can go as wide as your vision, right? And so we talk about the programs. Great point that you brought up. So not just the structure itself, but the structure could be 100 jobs if you think about it. And then you think about the marketing of that. And if you think about the human resources aspect and the hiring and the accounting and the legal and all of that that goes into just the structure. Then when you get into programming, the jobs creation can become exponential with just one project. But most of the people who listen to PowerTalk have vision, right? And they have a wide scope of vision. So one project just isn't it. We're thinking about now regions of projects. So that's the type of thinking I really want you all to tap into after looking at this segment. It's not about one project. Yes, get started with at least one. But for those of you who have a vision to do big things in your region, think about now the jobs that you just created. You can turn around a local economy with vision. With vision and with these nonprofit opportunities. Love, 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 love it. And see, that's a great segue, Sherita, into our legacy work segment that'll be coming up next week. So for those people who have been listening to what Sherita's been talking about with creating, the tagline, creating your own economy, with nonprofits, the jobs creations, knowing the difference between opportunity zones, vital, that's all the same thing. It's the function that we're looking at. Now that we have an idea of what can happen, now that we know the possibility of what can happen, I want to challenge you with the next segment to really get into legacy work. How do we start to now leverage and scale in nonprofits to really start thinking about changing regions of economies? And that's going to be an absolutely wonderful segment. Sherita, how do people get in contact with you?
They can go to my website at philanthropyalliance.org. When they go there, there's a subscribe button. Just get on that email list so that you can receive ongoing information. Also, my email address is Sherita, that's Sherita, she and Rita put together, Sherita.
Love it.
At
Sherita.
philanthropyalliance.org. So that's Sherita at philanthropyalliance.org. Now, a lot of people say, how do you spell philanthropy? And it's long. PHILANTHROPY. Alliance, ALLIANCE. Philanthropy, PHILANTHROPY. Alliance, ALLIANCE. Now, let me say something about philanthropy. You, along with so many of these others, if you guys are wanting to house, if you're wanting to make a difference with individuals, you're a philanthropist. You need to wear that title. So many of us don't. And when you wear a title, what you say, what you speak will bring to you what it is that you're needing next. If someone doesn't know that you are that, then how can you expect to receive what you should receive? Wear your title. Let it appear on your Facebook, on your website. You are a philanthropist. Okay? Look it up. Because you don't have to be a Bill Gates or a Warren Buffett to be a philanthropist. They had a beginning. Mm-hmm. So if this is your beginning, you don't have to be the multimillionaire to wear your title. You know, I'm Mrs., and I've only been married 2 years, but I was Mrs. Oglesby the moment I said I do, and we jumped that broom. So I didn't have to wait 2 years to wear Mrs. You wear it while you're in it, and your title will let people know who you are. So if there's somebody standing around and they thinking, who is that sister? And I say, hi, I'm Mrs. Oglesby. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see the ring. You know, wear your title. So that if you are at a meeting and you say, I am a philanthropist, you don't know what may be in that room. But if you're just talking about that you're doing low income housing and you're just now stepping into it, and I'm not sure about the no, as a philanthropist, these are the strategies that I plan to implement that is going to address the issues that are going to follow the long-term effect of COVID-19. Who wouldn't want to hear what you have to say?
Absolutely. So what I'm hearing you saying, it kind of ties into our initial conversation. Manifestation can be immediate. It's how you wear it and what you say about it. So as soon as you put that, and I am so a believer in the law of attraction. You put it out there, and people say the universe brings it. I'm a little bit more intentional. I believe the universe is directed by the sovereign will of God. That's a whole different conversation. But I believe once I speak that, he hears that, and he creates the environment for me to manifest that. So I'm going to change what I've been saying and really add the philanthropist part to it, because to your point, I do that, but I have not been wearing the title. And as soon as that title is put in the right room, it attracts the provision for the purpose.
Yes, the moment you plant a seed, a whole lot is happening at that time. It didn't just grow the moment you saw the flower. There was a whole lot going on that was being fed, and as that seed is growing and other animals and bugs are eating around it, ants or whatever, it's feeding that too. The moment that you start wearing who you are in the direction that you're going, it's going to be feeding, and you will start to see the flowers as they grow. But you've got to put it out there. You've got to claim it.
So here's how I'm going to end the show. Hello, my name is Ms. Mogul. I am a global philanthropist, not just a real estate CEO. How about them apples? But
that's it, girl.
Did I sell it? Yes, love it. But it really does speak to the work I want to do with the United Nations, etc. So I go back to, we're going to have to do that mindset segment. Sherita, we've gotten way over time. I knew we would do it, but there was so much meat on the bones here that I'm so glad we have this time to spend together. And again, if you're going to get it in the replay, everybody, but to just encapsulate everything that has been shared here today, make sure you can't say that you want something and you don't make that provision. Go get the right documentation, get set up for this, get the right business structure. Make sure that you file the right paperwork with the IRS. The 1023-EZ hopefully is the form you have to fill out, or that long one, but get the documentation completed, get it done. That opens up, as we talked about at the top of the segment, when it comes to creating jobs, not only money from the federal government, not only money from HUD, but there are state dollars that are allocated. There are local dollars allocated, but then you can grow exponentially with the private dollars that can come into your organization via donations of any kind. People can donate land, donate money, donate life insurance policies. There's a lot that can happen in donations, right? You are now open to that when you have the proper structure. Secondly, remember that your experience comes into play. So whatever you want to do in the nonprofit sector, remember your resume does play a part in that. You have to be credible. So if you want the big dollars, do the work and then be able to document what you've done to submit that with your request for funding. Sherita gave us a wonderful strategy. Third point, if you're taking notes, Google it. It's that easy. So you start with grants, then nonprofit, then housing, or whatever it is that you're pursuing. But remember,
grants,
we don't have
women's empowerment, grants, youth development, grants, suicide prevention.
That was my next point. Thank you for that. So it's not just limited for those of you who are listening to real estate. You're going to do so much more than just provide the house. You're going to provide the lifestyle. So when you're thinking about lifestyle instead of just housing, the world opens up. So think lifestyle, think experience when you're pursuing those dollars. Because to Sherita's point, as we were talking, what we're seeing with the pandemic, you all, it's going to be with us for a while. With mental health issues, dietary issues, housing issues, job creation, there's going to be a lot of opportunity to serve a lot of people. And you need to be thinking that way right now. Lastly, she told us that this opportunity is global. It's not relegated to a region. In real estate, we think, this region or this zip code is what's profitable right now. But when you're thinking in a more expansive way and meeting the needs of humanity, you're not relegated to a zip code. So you can take what you're doing in nonprofits and serve regions and serve the globe, actually, with what you're doing. Think globally. Think globally, think globally. Finally, wear the title. You're going to be a philanthropist, and this is kind of that mindset segment that we brought in, but wear the title. When you tell people that you're a philanthropist and you're able to articulate in 30 seconds or less what you do, it opens up the room, because nobody wants to sit and listen to an elevator speech all day, right? Know what you do, know how you serve, have that down pat, so that when you say, I'm a philanthropist and I meet the needs of women and children in these sectors, that's just an example. It then opens up the opportunity for conversations that have that ripple effect that we've talked about throughout this entire hour. And that's what you want. You want the opportunity to do that. And finally, as a bonus, this is the last aha moment. When you're naming your nonprofit, don't relegate your service. Make sure that you have a name that speaks to a wide range of services that people can donate and connect with. To her point, you wouldn't say the Charity Smith Housing Foundation, because it only relegates me to one thing. People pigeonhole you. But if I say the Charity Smith Empowerment Foundation, that could be anything and a lot of things. So make sure that you're thinking broadly when you're naming your nonprofit. You all connect again with Sherita at philanthropyalliance.org. And we'll make sure that that's her email address. We'll make sure that we have that in the comments as well. Get on her mailing list, philanthropyalliance.org. Make sure that you connect with her there. And then if you want to talk specifically about land, I'm passionate about land, you all. So for those of you who may be listening right now, and land is really where your passion is, land, agriculture, housing and development, and you're thinking about creating some alliances, let's have that kind of conversation. Go to mommyscreatingeconomies.com, and I'm going to expand that at some point. mommyscreatingeconomies.com. Subscribe there as well. Get on the mailing list. We're doing a blog series right now about land investing and how you can turn your land investing into a way to hedge against inflation in the current economy. How you can do that with land investing. Join that series there. And we will be back next Wednesday with Sherita, and we're going to talk legacy work. And this is where this beautiful woman is going to blow our minds with what's possible, to create those works that outlive our lifetime. That's the stuff that we're after in that next segment. We want to create something big that outlives our lifetime. Sherita, as always, it's been a pleasure and absolute delight having this time with you. I count it a blessing to have this kind of time with you, to share with the American audience and the global audience what the possibilities are. You are such a treasure. You're such a delight. I'm looking forward to our next segment. And you all share. Look, when you get access to it, share this segment. Don't keep this to yourself. Somebody has been waiting on this information. They just got it. Tune in. We also have a segment, a bonus segment today. I'll be talking with Dr. Tyra Jones about funding specifically in the Texas area when it comes to empowerment zones, etc. That's kind of a bonus sidebar, and you don't want to miss that as well, because she's going to be talking about what's happening right here in this region, and we're going to see what Texas has to say about it. Next week, though, we go global with Sherita. All right? So tune in next week, same time. And you all, if you don't have access, I promise you, you will. We had to kind of juggle with inclement weather, but you'll have it in a little bit. Any closing words right quick before we go, Sherita?
No, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to next week.
Awesome. I am too. And I know the American audience listening to us is looking forward to it as well. So you all, as I always say, you can create your own economy. We've just given you strategies in this segment, how you can make that happen. And you all think big, think really, really big. And I promise you, you haven't even scratched the surface when you do. Talk to you next week.